Royal Guard Nathan Cole stopped outside the private medical room when the corridor tablet displayed an unexpected alert. Prince George's biometric wrist monitor had triggered a minor injury report, yet the palace system showed no logged incident or supervising staff entry. Cole stepped closer to the door and heard quiet movement inside. According to the schedule, George should have been in a supervised study session. The system log showed something else. Someone had just marked the room restricted access. Royal Guard Nathan Cole first noticed the alert while reviewing routine activity on the corridor security tablet assigned to the children's wing. The notification originated from Prince George's wearable health monitor, a device designed to automatically report sudden physical impacts or abnormal movement patterns to the Palace Protection Network. The system rarely generated alerts unless a fall or collision had exceeded the medical threshold programmed into the monitoring software. Cole opened the notification immediately and read the summary displayed across the tablet screen. The monitor recorded a sharp impact only minutes earlier while George was in the study corridor reserved for evening lessons. Under palace procedure, the alert should have immediately notified the nearest physician and generated a supervision log entry confirming that a staff member had checked on the child. Cole scanned the system log, expecting to see the routine confirmation message. Instead, the supervision record showed nothing. No tutor entry, no medical acknowledgement, and no report from the study wing staff. The absence alone was unusual. The wearable monitors had been introduced specifically to prevent situations where a child could be injured without immediate attention. Cole checked the timeline again to make sure the alert had not been cleared automatically. The notification remained active, meaning the system still expected a response. He stepped toward the medical room located at the end of the corridor, where staff normally brought a child if an impact alert required examination. The door panel outside the room displayed a digital access message that immediately caught his attention. The room's access permissions had been changed to restricted only minutes earlier. Under normal conditions, guards assigned to the corridor could enter during any child medical alert, but the new setting blocked routine entry and required administrative authorization. Cole reviewed the door log on the tablet. The restriction had been applied less than a minute after the impact alert appeared. That sequence conflicted with child protection protocol, which normally expands access so medical staff and security officers can respond immediately. Cole examined the log entry again and confirmed that the restriction had not been issued by the automated safety system. It had been applied manually through the palace network. That meant someone with administrative credentials had deliberately limited access to the room immediately after the injury alert occurred. Cole remained outside the medical room door while the impact notification from George's wearable monitor continued flashing on the corridor tablet. The alert timer indicated that no physician had yet acknowledged the medical signal. Under normal circumstances, the palace system would automatically escalate the alert if several minutes passed without a response. Yet the system log still showed no confirmation that anyone had examined George. Cole opened the deeper access record attached to the door panel and traced the command that had applied the restricted access setting. The log indicated that the change had been issued through a portable administrative device connected to the palace network shortly after the injury alert was triggered. The system recognized the authorization credentials as valid, which explained why the restriction had been accepted without generating a security warning. Even so, the timing created a direct conflict with palace protection procedures. When a child impact alert occurred, guards assigned to the corridor were expected to verify the child's condition immediately if medical staff had not yet responded. Blocking that access removed a key safety step built into the response system. Cole activated the encrypted communication channel on the corridor tablet and contacted the palace command desk to request verification of the door restriction order. He explained the sequence exactly as the logs displayed it: an injury alert from Prince George's monitor, no medical confirmation recorded, and a manual change to the medical room's access permissions issued minutes later through an administrative device. The command desk operator acknowledged the request and began reviewing the authorization path attached to the access change. Cole waited beside the door while the system logs updated across the tablet screen. Inside the room, there was no sound or movement visible through the narrow observation window built into the door. The restricted access message remained active across the panel, preventing him from entering without additional authorization. The situation left Cole with an unusual conflict between protocol and system control. The injury alert required confirmation that George was safe, yet the administrative command applied to the door prevented the guard assigned to the corridor from performing that check. Nathan Cole remained positioned beside the medical room door while the command desk began verifying the authorization that had restricted the corridor access panel. The alert from Prince George's monitor continued flashing on the tablet, still awaiting confirmation from medical staff. The delay itself was beginning to approach the escalation threshold built into the Palace Health Monitoring Network. Normally, a physician or tutor would have acknowledged the alert within moments of the notification. Instead, the supervision log remained unchanged. Cole kept his attention on the door panel as he waited for the command desk to complete its verification. Footsteps approached from the opposite end of the corridor before the system trace finished loading on the tablet. A senior palace administrator appeared at the corner and walked directly toward the medical room with purposeful speed. Cole recognized the official immediately. The administrator held a position within the palace household office responsible for internal operations and carried authority over several administrative systems connected to the building. The official stopped beside the door and glanced briefly at the corridor tablet in Cole's hands. "You can step away from the door, Guard Cole," the administrator said calmly. "The situation inside is already being handled." The instruction was delivered in the neutral tone normally used for routine operational orders. Under ordinary circumstances, the command would require immediate compliance from any guard stationed in the corridor. Cole did not move. The active injury alert displayed on the tablet still showed no confirmation that Prince George had been examined. Cole responded respectfully, but without hesitation. "Sir, the monitor alert hasn't been cleared by medical staff," he said. "The system also shows the door access was restricted immediately after the alert." The administrator's expression remained composed. "That restriction was issued intentionally," the official replied. "You are not required in this matter. Return to your corridor position." Cole understood the weight behind the instruction. A senior administrative order normally overrode routine guard discretion, especially when the official issuing it held operational authority inside the palace household structure. Yet the health alert on the tablet remained unresolved, and the supervision log still showed no physician response tied to the injury notification. Cole kept his posture steady beside the door panel. "Sir, the alert requires confirmation from medical staff or a security supervisor before it can be cleared," he said carefully. "Until that confirmation appears in the system, I'm required to remain here." The administrator watched him for a moment, clearly aware that the guard was relying on established child protection protocol rather than refusing the order outright. The silence between them lasted only a few seconds before the administrator spoke again. "The situation is under control," the official repeated, this time with a trace of firmness behind the words. "You are authorized to leave the corridor." Cole did not raise his voice or argue the order. Instead, he held the tablet slightly higher so the administrator could see the active alert notification still flashing across the screen. "The monitor is still requesting a medical response," Cole said. "Until the system shows that Prince George has been examined, I can't clear the alert from this corridor." The administrator did not answer immediately. The tension in the hallway remained controlled but unmistakable. Cole knew he was balancing two competing obligations at the same moment, the requirement to follow an administrative directive and the responsibility to confirm a child safety alert issued through the palace monitoring system. He stayed where he was beside the door, waiting for the command desk to complete its verification while the alert timer continued counting upward. Nathan Cole remained outside the medical room door while the unresolved injury alert from Prince George's wearable monitor continued flashing across the corridor tablet. The palace command desk was still tracing the authorization attached to the access restriction when movement occurred on the other side of the door. The handle shifted briefly, and the door opened just enough for someone inside to step partially into the corridor. Cole did not attempt to move closer, but the short opening was enough to see into the room. Prince George was standing near the examination table, looking toward the doorway with the uncertain expression of a child who had not fully understood why the corridor outside had suddenly become restricted. The light from the room revealed a faint bruise forming near George's temple, the discoloration fresh enough to suggest the impact had occurred only minutes earlier. Cole immediately understood that the injury alert from the wearable monitor had been accurate. George lifted his hand briefly toward the side of his head, as if still trying to remember how the fall had happened. The door began closing again almost immediately, likely because whoever had opened it realized the corridor guard was still stationed outside. The moment lasted only seconds, but it provided the confirmation Cole had been waiting for. The alert had not been triggered by a harmless movement or sensor error. George had clearly sustained an impact, and the system still showed no physician confirmation. Cole turned his attention back to the tablet and opened the secure communication channel to the command desk again. His voice remained calm and precise as he updated the operators monitoring the situation. "Command, visual confirmation," he reported. "Prince George is inside the medical room with a visible bruise near the temple. No physician confirmation recorded in the system." The message transmitted instantly through the palace network, adding a new layer of urgency to the verification already underway. Inside the corridor, the senior administrator remained only a few steps away, listening while Cole relayed the information to the command desk. The report changed the dynamic of the situation immediately. The earlier explanation that the matter was already under control no longer matched what Cole had just observed. The palace monitoring system had registered an impact alert, and now the corridor guard had visually confirmed an injury that had not yet been logged in the medical response records. Cole ended the communication with the command desk and returned his focus to the door panel. The restricted access message still glowed across the display, preventing him from entering the room even though the alert remained active. A moment later, the command desk responded through the tablet speaker. The operator confirmed that the security team had begun reviewing the corridor logs tied to the medical room access panel. According to the records, the restriction placed on the door had been issued seconds after the injury alert was transmitted by George's wearable monitor. That timing suggested the access change was connected directly to the alert itself. Cole repeated what he had seen inside the room, describing the visible bruise and George's uncertain reaction when the door briefly opened. The command desk acknowledged the update and began forwarding the report to the palace security supervisor responsible for the children's wing. Cole understood that the investigation had now shifted beyond a simple system clarification. The injury alert, the restricted door access, and the lack of a recorded medical response no longer formed a routine sequence of events. They formed a pattern that required explanation. Cole remained beside the door, maintaining his position until someone with clear medical authority confirmed that Prince George had been properly examined. Within minutes of Nathan Cole's report, the Palace Security Analysis Desk began examining the system commands tied to the medical room door restriction. The command desk forwarded the corridor access logs to the cybersecurity team responsible for monitoring administrative device activity inside the palace network. Cole remained outside the medical room while the investigation unfolded across the internal monitoring systems. The senior administrator who had issued the stand-down order stayed nearby, but no longer repeated the instruction for Cole to leave the corridor. The change in tone suggested that the situation had moved beyond routine internal handling. A few minutes later, the command desk returned with the first clear result from the system trace. The door restriction had not been issued through the automated child protection system or through the medical response console normally used by palace physicians. Instead, the command originated from a handheld administrative tablet connected briefly to the internal palace network. The system logs showed that the device had accessed the corridor security panel remotely and applied a temporary restriction preventing standard guard entry. The command had remained active for several minutes before the system automatically restored normal access permissions. Cole listened carefully while the command desk operator summarized the findings. The authorization credentials attached to the tablet were valid administrative credentials used by several departments inside the palace. That explained why the system accepted the command without generating an immediate security alert. However, the timing of the instruction raised a serious concern. The restriction had been applied seconds after the injury alert reached the network, meaning someone with administrative access responded by limiting corridor access instead of calling medical support. The investigation continued as cybersecurity analysts examined the deeper activity logs connected to the same tablet device. The trace revealed a second action that had occurred shortly after the door restriction was issued. The administrative tablet had attempted to delay the automatic medical notification normally sent to palace physicians when a child injury alert remained unresolved for several minutes. The system had accepted part of the command, but rejected the final override request because the wearable monitor alert was already active within the network. That failure prevented the medical notification from being completely suppressed. Even so, the delay introduced by the command had slowed the system's escalation process long enough to create a gap between the injury alert and the arrival of medical staff. When the analysts explained the sequence to the command desk, the significance became clear. The tablet operator had not only restricted corridor access to the medical room, but had also attempted to control how quickly the health monitoring system notified palace physicians. Cole absorbed the information while standing beside the door panel. The actions recorded in the system logs formed a pattern that could not easily be explained as routine administrative behavior. Someone had taken deliberate steps to manage the response to Prince George's injury before the standard protection procedures could take effect. The command desk informed Cole that the security supervisor for the children's wing had been alerted and that palace physicians were now on their way to examine George directly. Until they arrived, Cole maintained his position outside the medical room, aware that the investigation had now revealed something more serious than a simple access restriction. The corridor outside the medical room remained under quiet watch as palace physicians arrived several minutes after the security team confirmed the altered system commands. Nathan Cole stepped aside just enough to allow the medical staff to enter once the access restriction automatically cleared from the door panel. The physicians moved directly toward Prince George, beginning a calm but thorough examination, while the command desk monitored the health alert that still remained active in the system. Cole did not enter the room. Instead, he remained outside the doorway, where the corridor tablet continued displaying the unresolved notification tied to George's wearable monitor. Through the partially open door, he could see the physicians checking the bruise near George's temple and asking simple questions to determine whether the child felt dizzy or disoriented. George answered quietly, explaining that he had slipped while moving across the study corridor earlier in the evening. The description matched the type of impact the wearable monitor had recorded. Within a few minutes, the physicians confirmed that the injury appeared minor and that George had not lost consciousness. One of the doctors entered the response confirmation into the palace health monitoring system, immediately clearing the alert that had triggered the entire sequence of events. The corridor tablet in Cole's hand reflected the change as the flashing notification disappeared and the system status returned to normal supervision. Yet while the medical concern had now been addressed, the security issue that followed the alert remained unresolved. the command desk operator informed Cole through the communication channel that the investigation into the administrative tablet was still underway. The system logs clearly showed that the restriction placed on the door and the attempt to delay the physician notification had both been issued before any medical confirmation had been recorded. Once the physicians finished their examination and George was escorted back toward his study under supervision, the palace security supervisor arrived in the corridor to review the situation directly with Cole. By that point, the system analysis had confirmed the full sequence of commands issued through the administrative tablet earlier in the evening. The device had restricted guard entry to the medical room immediately after the injury alert was transmitted, and then attempted to slow the automated medical notification that would normally summon palace physicians without delay. The actions had not prevented medical care entirely, but they had clearly interfered with the normal protection procedures designed to ensure that any injury involving a royal child received immediate attention. Cole explained calmly why he had remained outside the door despite the earlier order to step away from the corridor. The wearable monitor alert had remained active, the system showed no physician response, and the restricted door access conflicted directly with the protocol that required guards to confirm a child's safety when medical alerts were unresolved. The supervisor reviewed the system timeline and nodded once after hearing the explanation. Cole's decision to remain in the corridor had ensured that the situation could not be quietly managed through administrative system controls alone. The moment he reported the visual confirmation of George's injury, the security team began examining the system logs that eventually revealed the altered access commands. Without that report, the door restriction might have expired automatically without drawing attention to the attempt to control the response. As the supervisor finalized the incident record for the palace investigation, one conclusion had already become clear. Prince George's fall had been accidental, but the effort to quietly manage the situation through restricted access and delayed system alerts had created a far more serious security concern. Cole's refusal to follow the immediate stand-down order ensured that both the injury and the system manipulation were fully documented inside the palace protection record.